Sheila. Is that mic working? Yes, it is. Great. I'm not sure which is more nerve-wracking, standing up in front of the Oxford Farming Conference as a kid who's lived in London all his life, or coming here in front of you guys. And the only thing I'd say is that was a COVID-interrupted 2 and a bit years ago, and I've spent a lot of time in the time between on the farms of many people in this room. And I want to start really by thanking the landowning and farming community for the incredible support, both having on their farms, talking about what's going on, and then sharing their thinking with me, and also quite a large number of you pointing out where the initial drafts of the strategy were wrong and what needed to change. I thought it might be useful today to do a couple of things. To start off just by talking about what's in the strategy, what it was for, what it set out to do, and apologies to those of you who have heard that before, but I think I'll spend a short amount of time up front doing that, and then talk about what the political context is now and where we might go from here, what might happen over the next few weeks, few months and few years, and then hopefully leave a good amount of time for anyone here to ask questions. Can you put the slide up? Yes, great. So the food system, as I pointed out in the strategy and actually at that Oxford conference, is a result of the great triumphs. But this miracle came at an extraordinary, and at the time, no one must know it, unrecognised cost. And one way of explaining quite how much the food system has taken over our planet is to look at the total weight of animals on the planet over a period of time. This slide shows the 2.5 million people who lived on the planet in 10,000 BC, the period of stable climate known as the Holocene, during which farming, because climate was stable, became possible. And at the time, they were dwarfed by the population of wild animals. This slide shows the situation today. So wild animals, the population of wild animals has shrunk, in part due to our enthusiastic hunting of megafauna, and then the increasing pressure we're putting on wild animals. In fact, the green circles at the top there are animals kept by humans, horses, cats and dogs, which weigh almost as much as all of the wild animals in the world today. People, as I said, increased to 7.8 billion, but the animals that we use to feed people has grown massively. At any time, the animals that feed us weigh twice as much as all humans on the planet and 10 times as much as all the wild animals. And that extensive use of nature has unsurprisingly caused problems. Biodiversity loss, food is the biggest single cause. If you're worried about fresh water supply and quality, the food system is the biggest strain on water supply and quality. If you're worried about deforestation, it's food, overfishing, it's food, and climate change, the food system, which produces 20 to 30% of greenhouse gases, is second only to energy systems in terms of causing climate change. Is that a problem for the people who suffer it, for their family, the logistical issues of dealing with coronary heart disease, people who die of diabetes, losing their family, losing time with their grandchildren? It's also incredibly expensive. The NHS projects now that it will spend more by 2035 dealing with type 2 diabetes, only one dietary illness, than it currently does on all cancers. So the system, the food system, is literally unsustainable. It cannot continue in the way it currently operates. The only question is, can we bring about a transition to a better form of operation before more people die, before the environment is more degraded? That leave you, and I'm talking to you who are here, who are people who, in particular, who are trying in very difficult circumstances to navigate the future farming programme and think about what this transition means to you. In terms of where we are in a kind of government sense, I think on environment, there were two big announcements and some smaller ones on Monday. One was that they will do a land use framework. That will be the first country in the world to do that. It will be incredibly political and very difficult for them to land, but it is fundamentally necessary if you're going to resolve these problems. And they also said they were going to start trying to set more of the data free so that farmers, producers could actually begin to understand really how the system works with the data program. They didn't deal with trade. So interestingly enough, in the leaked white paper last Saturday, the government had much stronger wording on trade, saying that they would introduce different standards for different levels of environmental production and animal welfare. That disappeared by the time it was published, presumably taken out by the Department for International Trade. That is a big issue still to be resolved. And nothing was in there on a statutory basis. So my fear is that the kind of government will disperse and someone will have to come and do this work again in 5-10 years' time. On health, we wait and see what the Health Secretary says in a few weeks' time. My hope is that at a minimum he will recognise that the junk food cycle exists and the food companies can't do this alone. They need intervention, because they know they need intervention. It'll be interesting to see where he comes out on that. In terms of people in this room, the thing in my other role as a non-exec at DEFRA I hear a lot is concerns about not really being able to see into the future, not knowing enough about where the landing point is in terms of the future farming programme. And I'm actually chairing a session with the Secretary of State and some others tomorrow, and I imagine that question will come up to him. I think in looking inside, it is very difficult. It is a huge transition, and DEFRA will make mistakes. I think that genuinely their intention is the right one. And my biggest concern at the moment is that nervousness leads to lobbying for a basic payment, to return to the system of basic payments. We don't prove that the payments for common goods can work quickly enough, and you end up with Treasury taking away the cash. So I think that I would like to see farmers doing two. I don't see anyone, which I think is essential, saying this is how much money we need. Nature NGOs, farming bodies. At the moment, it's just accepted that the amount that the Common Agricultural Policy was will be the amount that is required for nature. It could be much more, it could be less. No one is making that case, and Treasury will be very interested in that case when they come to reviewing this. And the second is proving that basic payments, proving that you can pay, you can get in public goods from that money. Because if you can't show that, it will be seen as they see the Common Agricultural Policy, a lot of money to Dyson, not to produce food, but to make it a state look nice. And both those cases lead to a reduction in the money. I'm going to end there. I've seen a number of people who I'd love to speak to on that second point, Mark and various others, but I think that is really, I'd love to see the farming body leaning in to how we can make the environmental programme work rather than arguing for basic payments, because I think that way you need to double disaster, you need to no recovery of nature, and you need to all the money being taken away from the farming community. But I am fundamentally optimistic, particularly on environment. So thank you very much for inviting me in this incredibly hot tent and bearing with me.